Good day. I'm Gail Hunter. Panoramic Poetry is a spoken word venue in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Once a week, poets come to read and listen to the spoken word. Here are some highlights from past Panoramic Poetry gatherings.
I'm here. Thank you to Crucial for letting me be here and facilitate that whole thing. This first piece I want to do, kind of want to follow up on the coattails of my man, Mr. Inspirational. It's not necessarily about my daughter, but my daughter did inspire this piece because of something that was said to her in the grocery store. And there was another African-American woman that complimented her, so to speak. And I used what she said to her to write the first line of this poem and then all of the things that followed, all of the thoughts that I had that followed. I call this Forward Digress. She's so cute for a dark-skinned girl, a dark-skinned girl, a dark-skinned girl, a dark-skinned girl. I echo this expression because when my mind starts to digress back a long way, back to when Africans were brought to America as slaves. And when they worked all day and played after their endeavors, well, almost never. Back then, the master would leave the comfort of his house and the comfort of his spouse and sneak out back to a shack where he and others would attack and rape a slave's wife while they threatened the male slave's life with a gun or a knife, repeatedly taking turns for most of the night in spite of the fact that that shit wasn't right. Then, 10 months later, a light-skinned baby with light-skinned features and just a little darker and sweeter than the meat of white-skinned people. But like, excuse me, y'all. But like partially cooked meat, there was redness near their bones. So they were partially accepted by their oppressors and welcomed into their homes to cook and to clean and to provide child care as domestic servants or unequal au pairs. Like Butterfly McQueen or Hattie McDaniels, sisters in Hollywood that played maids and manners. Or like Jeffrey from Fresh Prince or Robert Guillaume as Benson, but with the difference being that back then, most of them were light-skinned. And therein was the resentment that the dark-skins were feeling because the toil and the work in the fields wasn't easy. There was stress from hard labor and the perception that the light-skins were favored, and they prayed to their Savior, "Dear God, can you save us?" But God did not hear them, and if he did, he didn't deliver. So it made the division between dark-skins and light-skins bigger. And it contributed to the rift between field and house niggas, and those with complexions like Lena Horne and Wesley Snipes, and those that are light and bright and those that are black as night. And in between those are phenotypes like mulattoes, quadroons, and octoroons, not trusted by white folks and envied by darker-skinned coons for their manageable slave duties and Anglo-Saxonized beauty that was genetically altered and diluted out smoothly. And it's unfair to declare hair that's less kinky or unruly as good, or like that hair that they wear in that Chris Rock movie. Yet hair that is knotty or nappy is not, until it falls on the floor of the salon or barbershop. Then, for black women and men whose skin has less melanin, that's hurting from discrimination and the pain of miscegenation and from the division within our racing, because when dark skins look upon their faces, they see acceptance from Caucasians. But it's amazing that not even the lightest of light skins are not. So others within the race need to stop. Let me explain. Isn't it strange that not even a light bright could pass for white because all he got is one black drop of blood running through his veins as a Creole man could ride or stand on the whites only car of a segregated train? Homer Plessy was his name. And according to whites, his blackness was obvious as plain as his face. And I know because the Supreme Court said so in a landmark case. And if you never heard of him, check out Plessy versus Ferguson. It's disturbing. And it's interesting that my digression continues progressing through the past to a time when black folks used paper bags. I'm talking about those brown ones. Those if you ain't darker than this, you ain't really down ones. I'm talking about that kind that you find when the ozone layer has deteriorated to the point where mankind will be obliterated by ultraviolet damage, And the only way we can manage is if we vacate this planet in a giant rocket ship with a super large cockpit and a tremendous amount of gas. And the only ones that won't be allowed on board are those darker than a paper bag. And just like during institutional slavery, tragically, paper bags will separate black families, and even black fathers from black mothers, and even Delta, AKA, and Zeta sisters from Sigma, Kappa, Alpha, and Omega brothers, and their menagerie of colors. And anyone else that I forgot in this section that are discriminated interracially because of complexion. And it's depressing, and it's mean, and it contributes to lower self-esteem, and the proliferation of relaxers and weaves, and the widespread use of skin lightening cream like Ambi. Meanwhile, white folks are somewhere tanning. And these dichotomies are highly unusual. So my digression moves me forward to a time when blackness was beautiful, and when blacks were Negroes, and where blacks had unaltered noses and naturally grown afros, and when there was unity enough to fight against the man, and when brothers demonstrated through raised gloved fist when they made it to the medal stand, and when Malcolm and Martin had us feeling rebellious and proud, and when James Brown came to town and tell us to say it loud. And if I was in that crowd and not here doing this spoken word rhyme, I would find me a female shade of brown that's fine, any kind. And we're gonna have a funky good time. Tick a blim, blim, blim. And we're gonna have a funky good time. Tick a blim, blim, blim. And we're gonna take it high. Yeah. And James Brown was putting down hits like these all throughout the 1960s. And though it's refreshing, I think I'm doing too much digressing. So instead of Campbell walking and grooving, I'm gonna keep on talking and moving ahead 40 or 50 years. And now we are here in the present tense, or in this present tension. But there's one thing that I forgot to mention, and that is that all this intraracial envy of one another and division between dark-skinned and light-skinned sisters and brothers ain't nothing but lynching. And we've been doing it to ourselves ever since 1712. Ever since Willie Lynch delivered a spoke on the banks of James River that told slave owners how to control niggas or black folk, and how to divide them through mistrust and fear. And we've been perpetuating these philosophies for almost 300 years. And though it's hurtful, I've come full circle. And maybe my point is moot, even though it's the truth. And I'm guessing that I wouldn't be digressing if that sister would have looked in my daughter's direction without regard for her complexion and simply said, "Excuse me, mister, but she's so cute."